as we talk about the business of film. How do we create a viable film industry in Barbados that adds value to the local economy? And we have some great guests tonight with some answers, and hopefully we can do just that, find that pathway towards development of a Barbados film industry. Rivelino Simmons is with us. He's the president of the Barbados Film and Video Association. Mark Walton is an associate professor of media management with the New School. That New School is located in New York. Ince is a writer and producer. She's worked with a number of big films. One of them you may know, Bazadi. And Kirk Dawson, he's the managing director of 13 Degrees North Productions Incorporated. So stick around. We have a great conversation lined up for you where we find some answers to the business of film here in Barbados. Back with you on The People's Business as we talk about the business of film. There have been efforts to develop the local film industry. We've seen more and more things being done over the past 5 to 10 years to make it a viable part of what we do here in Barbados. Make it an industry where the average Barbadian can gain a skill and find a job in that industry. But it's also an expensive business, and there are many hurdles still that exist. Now, we want to put this whole conversation into context. Of course, the Prime Minister is one of the avid supporters of the local film industry, and many efforts by the government have also been on to promote Barbados as a place where films can be done, where it's an attractive location for film making. Here's the Prime Minister's take, well, what she had to say on building out a film industry here in Barbados.
Ambassador Blackman has been active in trying to get the promotion done also with Bollywood and with Nollywood. So this is, when I leave this job, I'm going to help make movies and make music. Okay. And Jerome heard me say so already for the day.
The second question.
And Noel heard me say so. But so this is an area that I feel strongly about, and we will continue to work on.
And as she rightly said, it's not only about Hollywood, and the Hollywood model may not be what we want to use here in Barbados. So let's get into this conversation now and understand, or get a better understanding of where the local film industry is at right now. With me again, Rivelino Simmons, the president of the Barbados Film and Video Association, Mark Walton, associate professor of media management with the New School, Ince is a writer and producer, and Kirk Dawson, the managing director of 13 Degrees North Productions, Inc. So we have all of the stakeholders to really get into the meat of film being a business and a viable one here in Barbados. Rivelino, talk about that though. Where is the film industry at right now? It's something that you've been involved in both sides, television and film, and you've seen all of the developments over the past decade or so. Where are we at this stage as government tries to play its part too in assisting and facilitating the development of film and the film industry here in Barbados?
Well, we're still in pretty much in our embryonic stages. We've got a long way to go. We've got a lot of things to put in place as well. From the facilitation side, no incentives. It's something government is looking at, and it's where we have to go if we want to move this forward. From a local production side, there isn't that platform for local producers or young up-and-coming producers to place their product. Recently, we've worked out a deal with the CBC, and that's great, where they can put their content on at no cost now. Before there was a cost. But, it's really difficult where, even for example, platforms like YouTube, we don't have access to it from Barbados. So there's a lot of work that has to be done from many angles if we want to grow our local industry and the international side of it, bringing people here, training. There's a lot of components to make this happen. This is not as simple as, let's do a film industry and it will happen. There's a lot of things that have to be put in place.
Clear up that point about YouTube for me when you say we don't have access, because I know people may say we do have access to YouTube, but the access you're talking about isn't clicking on the link and watching what is seen there. Explain exactly what you mean.
There's an issue with Google One and Google Play as it relates to Barbados. We're one of the few countries that has the problem. So if you want to have a YouTube channel and get paid for it, you have to do all sorts of workarounds in order to get on the platform. If you go and check it out, you realize
you need to get paid as that producer. Yes, you can't get paid. Producer.
Yeah, and so many people are out there getting paid. So many young people are out there getting paid, making content for kids, making whatever else content, and getting paid. And unfortunately, from Barbados, we can't do it.
That is interesting, though. It's something that really needs to be looked at and corrected, and I'm glad you were able to make that point. I want to bring Kirk into the conversation now. Kirk, from your side of things, you've even worked with Netflix here in Barbados. What are some of the hurdles that you've had to jump and climb over in terms of getting your work done and making film a reality?
Good night, Shane, and good night to all the viewers. A lot of our challenges, so it won't just be myself. I run 30 Degrees North is run by myself and my wife, Kerry Birch. And we've been in the business now, both of us, for over 20 years, but 30 Degrees North is only 8 years old. A lot of our challenges have been getting incentives and getting the departments within Barbados, and when I say departments, the government departments and the various structures to work together and understand how film impacts all the other sectors in Barbados. So you have the hotel, the manufacturing, transportation, food and beverage. So once we get a large contingent coming in or a large production coming in, it is then trying to work with those various entities to fit them all together. Luckily, the film commissioner, Annette, has been pushing and doing a good job. She's now been able to fast track some of the grants, some of the permits that we would need for on the ground. But kudos to her, but she still needs a lot more help. From the film commissioner's standpoint, well, she's here. She now launched a film festival, a film challenge. But from where we sit, the film commissioner's desk should be looking at promoting film more on the outside, and then looking at ways and means for the government departments and government agencies to definitely be working in a greater sense of cohesion to be able to facilitate any large films or small productions coming into the country.
Clear, when you hear this, and I'm going to come back to you, Kirk, because there's still a lot more to be said as far as that is concerned in terms of the facilitation end. But Claire, when you hear these stories about the challenges that we face here in Barbados, you being a producer as well, what are your thoughts? Why can't we make those necessary steps? Are these hurdles the only reason and the only challenges they are to developing what could be a budding film industry here in Barbados?
So I think when we're talking about it, we're looking at two things. One is attracting production, and one is sort of building and developing local production that is directed at the world. Let me start with the first part of that. I think there's a lack of infrastructure for some of these things. There are about four, I think, major elements in terms of attracting international productions. One of them is facilities. We talked a little bit about that. Locations in terms of Barbados. I mean, we're blessed with a beautiful island. I mean, we got that down. The other two things in terms of workforce development, let me talk about that a little bit. I wrote and produced Bazadi, and we did that over the course of 5 weeks in Trinidad and Tobago. We brought in our key head of production. So each in terms of film production, you have like your set design or your costume. We brought in the head of those productions, of those segments, but we used local people, local Trinidadian and Tobagonian craftspeople to work on the film. So one of the areas that we really need to look at is developing the workforce that, so that when keys come from outside, they can work with locals and really build skills in that way. And then I think we touched also on the incentives, and these are rebates. When we were in Trinidad and Tobago, we had 35% rebates on production spending, but we also had incentives in terms of casting locals. 50% of what we spent, we got back 50% of what we spent on casting locals from in a rebate program. So when you look at attracting film to the country, I think those are major things that would need to be in place, and in a systematic way. Not just on applying for this production applies and gets it, this production applies and doesn't get it, but a policy that really makes it that you can build a film in that way. Because when you're looking at film financing, you want to be sure that those elements are in place before you commit to filming in a certain location. The second part of this now is in terms of building local writers, producers, stories. And this is a really important part because, we've had productions come into the Caribbean and take advantage of beautiful locations, but we want to be at a point where we can tell our stories, where the world can know more about who we are. And a lot of that, I think, is about developing writers and also knowing that thinking about audience when we make product. When we made Bazadi, we knew we were making a musical. From a producer standpoint, we wanted to have Machel Montano, who has a huge audience. So we built the film in that way. I feel that sometimes because there's an idea that, people get an idea and they just sit down and they write the film and it all comes out. But it really is thinking about who the audience for the film is. Sometimes it's like Riv mentioned TV as a platform that could be developed more. Trying to think about what an audience wants and what genres exist and how to make content that speaks to that audience.
And you mentioned something that's pretty critical in terms of the skill sets and the people needed to make film a reality. Mark, you're an associate professor of media management. Talk a bit about that process and what we need to do to generate more people, not that would only be interested in film, but that would have the credentials to get the job done, instead of having to import labor.
No, I mean, sure. No, the reality is that the idea of having people who understand the film business goes more than just how do I pick up a camera. It actually is having the people in the business understand that this is an industry where you not only have to create the product, but you have to then market and distribute it. And that's one of the areas where there needs to be some emphasis, especially when we're training people to know that they need to engage the distribution aspect of things early on in the process. A little bit about what Claire said, knowing where your target audience is, knowing that you actually have to go out and appeal to them with a platform that will reach these audiences. So training people either in the universities or not necessarily just universities, but actually training people who are being able to apprentice or intern having them understand that it's not just understanding the craft, but it's also understanding, where these projects will have to wind up and how to get them out into the market.
It's so interesting, all of these elements, if they can come together and working in sync, this industry can be big money for Barbados. And I think people only put things into perspective when they hear dollars and cents. Rivelino, talk about how much money an industry like this, once it gets going, could make for Barbados. What is the potential?
I would pass this on to Kirk because I know Kirk has done a lot of this research and he's been on this for a while. All yours, Kirk.
So Shane, I like to make things very simple for people. Yes. So let us say that Outer Banks, for example, which may have a budget of $3 million per episode, US, that is, yes. And
How much million?
Let's say $3 million per episode.
3 million. I like to write down these things. I like to write down these things for everything. So you go ahead.
So if you look at that, or if you look at most other large productions that may have bigger budgets, right? In any given production, once a production has a $3 million budget, 10% of that will remain within country minimum. So once you come here, let's say you come to shoot 10 episodes of a film and you have $3 million per episode, you can easily do the maths on that, Shane. What will remain on the ground in Barbados?
That's $3 million already.
Exactly, right? Mm-hmm. And you can shoot those, let's say, within a month. So imagine you have an industry that can generate that level of income within a 30-day span or less. And we are not looking at it as serious as we should. If film, or when film gets the opportunity to take off, you could easily be producing feature-length films and turning over millions of dollars within a 2-week span. Because most productions try to make everything as short as possible. I mean, unless it is episodic, because you could have episodic series running for 6 months of the year or 3 months of the year, right? But if it's a feature-length film, that might take, depending on what it is, a month to shoot. The post-production period then takes longer, and then the post-production side is the other side that we really need to look at, because as a small country, yes, well, we are looking to be attractive in terms of our locations. At the end of the day, our biggest resources is our people. Now, from the post-production end, all you need is guys in a room with a computer, and you can then turn out millions of dollars just by people sitting in a room and editing or doing, well when they say editing of special effects, the visual effects, the sound, the actual editing of the movie itself. The post-production spectrum is also quite large.
Indeed.
And can definitely generate a lot of money too on that back end. But those are the things that we generally don't think about because we are not exposed to it, or the general public is not exposed to it and don't think about it as a career.
Exactly, and that's why I'm glad I have you all on tonight, so that you all can expose our viewers, those parents out there, so that they can talk to their children who they may see are interested in shooting videos, because one of the easiest ways to shoot film now is on these devices, these phones. So it's all about getting a population interested and giving them some direction. So I'm glad the four of you are here to do just that. Those numbers to call our viewers, 228-5562, 228-5563. Of course, you can follow us as well on our socials. We have them tagged on our screen. You can go there to type your questions if you need to as well. But stay tuned. We have a lot more to talk about as we speak about the business of film here in Barbados.
and it don't work.
It's all about the business of film tonight, as we have with us Rivelino, Mark, Claire, and Kirk to give you all of the answers, or at least some of the answers, as we try to find some direction for the local film industry. We do have a caller on the line. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment? Good night.
For sure, we don't allow actors saying Barbados. I could call two of the shows that were Laugh It Off and Beijing Bus Stop. And my another question I would ask: we have somebody that went far in the film here in Barbados. Why are we not utilizing their experience? Alison Seeley Smith, I think is her name.
Okay.
Why is she not part of the panel tonight? Well, she would have got an idea how, because she went far Hollywood.
Rivelino?
Actors here for sure.
Well, the problem tonight was there was only space for 4 people. And I can tell you, I know people that sit down in Barbados and they master audio for Discovery Channel. There are a ton of people that work within the industry, but we have to start pulling this all together and getting everyone together, training, and, opportunities. Because we're saying film, but really and truly that includes television. The term is used loosely these days. Yeah, it's not exactly film and just movies. We're talking television as well, because the real opportunities, a lot more opportunities are there in television. I've been producing a show for 109 weeks right now. That's over 2 years. And there are opportunities out there. We have to start looking them at in different ways. And, don't restrict ourselves and say, if you develop a concept, it has to be on a Bajan theme. No, just create good content and it will help our industry grow.
Well, let's talk about those opportunities. And I think, Kirk, you wanted to chime in there. But before you do, let's go to the phone line again. We have the calls coming in fast and furious. Another film that I like. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment? Good night, caller.
I want to pose a question to the first gentleman who spoke.
Go ahead.
Where he talked about people in other countries, young people in other countries making a lot of money, and people in Barbados, it's not happening. I would like to know if the problem is with Barbados, or if the problem has to do with what is happening on the outside. Thank you.
Okay, Riv. So he wants some clarity on that question surrounding YouTube and why people can't capitalize monetarily on their broadcast there. Here in
that
Barbados.
issue is relates to Google One in 2019 pulled the services from Barbados. You couldn't pay directly anymore, and that affected the Google Play side of it and all the other products. So anything dealing with transactions on Google, I'm not even sure how we fix this, but we have to really look at this and work out, because we were just looking at the list before the show and Belize and everyone else is on there and Barbados isn't on there.
Wow.
So we have to relook at it. We have to look at it.
So Barbados has to sign up to be a Google partner, first and foremost, and that will be a government initiative. So once the government gets on board and signs up to be the Google partner, then we be able to monetize the content coming out of Barbados. But no individual company or our individual can do it. That definitely has to come from the government end of things. Now, for me, I've been putting forth an argument and have been stating, if we look at a BTMI ad campaign, for example, that will be running and showcasing Barbados beautiful beaches or whatever, we are missing out so much money from just putting that up on YouTube so that people could just click and watch it. So, well, on one end, we have the tourism product and we have the advertising for Barbados, but on the other end, it could be a cash cow as well. We're just a simple beaches, Barbados. The amount of views that could potentially get will be astounding. And that is definitely money that the government is just letting go by.
Letting go through.
Wow.
I did a show 3 years ago. We had over 200,000 views on it, and it was 4 hours long, and we weren't able to monetize any of that aspect on YouTube.
That's something that is a huge oversight, though, and hopefully you can help to correct that by advocating through the Film and Video Association for that to be addressed. But we hold a second. We do have another caller on the line. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business as we discuss the business of film. What's your question or comment?
Good night, Shane. Good night to the panel. Thank you for the opportunity to participate in the discussion. My question is primarily directed to the president of the Barbados Film and Video Association, Rivelino. My question is, there are still content creators in Barbados creating content. I could be wrong, but perhaps I thought I heard Rivelino indicated that there's an opportunity on TV for persons to, CBC, for content creators to create their content and have it aired on CBC TV8 for free. My question is, what are the opportunities available for content creators to create content fit for Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation and be paid for their work? I want to know what the Film and Video Association is doing as it relates to having content creators paid by CBC for their work.
Very good question. I love this.
My next question before you go, just one more question before you go. One more question. The last question is, why is it that local content creators with YouTube channels cannot have their channels monetized? What are the factors preventing content creators from doing so? Thank you.
We went through that one not too long ago, so I suspect you were on the line when that was actually being answered. The first one with CBC. Unfortunately, CBC is cash strapped and cannot pay content creators for their content. Let's be realistic. However, they've made a nice offer and said, we will take 50% of the advertising inventory, you keep 50%. So you have a way of monetizing your content because you own 50% of that. And that may be the best that we can do at this time. But before, there used to be a fee if you wanted to get your show on CBC. And now there's no fee, but you now own 50% of ad inventory. Now you can go and sell that to a sponsor and whatever else. I've had people use it in a very smart way. I once licensed the sport. I give the sporting organization that ad inventory. They were able to advertise their event, get people to fill the seats. I produced the show, licensed it to Flow Sports, and it was a win-win for everyone because they got a sponsor to come aboard. CBC got some sponsorship too. Everyone won from it. I think we have to start looking at the business models in how we can make this work, but also have a team that is able to help these producers to market their product, because any TV producer he doesn't want to go out there and try and sell commercials. That's the worst thing you could tell them. I just want to deal with a camera and editing and producing my show. We have to create the mechanisms or the structures in place that they can go to at the end and try and move their show within Barbados and outside of Barbados with a distributor or whoever, or someone that can hold their hand through that production process and say, this is what the market is looking for.
It sounds like you're talking about having basically you have to have a team. You have people for specific roles and each making that come together, getting their job done to make, it ends up being a film, but just to make whatever production you do make money and look good as well. You wanted to add something there very quickly, Kurt?
So number of things. River just give you a plug, but in order to access all of what River is talking about, you have to be a member of the Barbados Film and Video Association. Yes. just so everybody's aware, it's not everybody that this is open to in Barbados that will come to CBC and say, I want my stuff on air for free. Right. You have to be a member of the Film and Video Association. And being the past president, I would afford that to River. I
was going to bring that in later, Kurt, but go ahead.
However, producers are definitely needed in Barbados. So a lot of people get the idea. Okay, I want to make a film. Like Claire said, we need the team of people. So you have to look at the writing first, and you have to have a team of writers together to achieve the best possible script that comes out. Because you have an idea or because you write something does not mean that that is the best form or the best way to tell the story. So for us, for my wife and I, we are looking to develop a writer's room, to be quite honest, and a writer's cluster, so that the local stories can be, or the Caribbean stories, we can then have access to move those stories from the local level to the international level. But it always starts with the story first. Now, when it comes down to selling your content and getting it out there for distribution, that is where you definitely need a producer and a distributor who understands what will be needed for that market and looking at the market that you want to tap into, or the market that will make the most sense for your story to be seen in or to be told to. And it's just not about coming up with an idea and just saying, okay, I definitely want to shoot this and I want to pull this team together and go ahead and do it. Especially, Shane, that you were saying the easiest thing right now is to shoot stuff on your phone. But if you go and create content on your phone for the cinema screen, not understanding the aspect ratio, understanding the color science, then any day once it hits cinema or once it hit the DCP stage, then it's like, hey, nah, this phone quality is not going to cut it. But if it's for, then it's fine.
When I said that, and let me put that comment into context, I was thinking about it and add that iPhone did for its iPhone 13 for its film production. So that was specifically for that. That was made.
So, Apple has definitely made a film camera now as a phone. We know this, but at the end of the day, that is one step. But then it has to look at how much memory you're going to take up, your aspect ratios that you're going to use. So a lot more goes into it. But once again, for me, a camera is a camera is a camera. It all starts with people that clear first. Story is king. Without a good story, you don't have any.
Okay, let's go back to the phone line very quickly. Claire, I want to get you in as well. Just hold that thought. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment? Please, caller, don't listen to your television set. Listen to your phone. Listen to the phone line, please.
I was calling about, there's some films years ago, Kite Flyer and Badness. I mean, they were good for the viewing, and I'm wanting to call in, why is it not so consistent? You know what I mean? That other people could come and put together something that to get a good grip on,
And thank you, caller, for your question. And Riv, it's a fair question. We see some films that pop up, that capture the attention of Barbadian audiences because they're seeing themselves and their culture and their lives portrayed on the big screen, and then there's an absence in something that can capture your attention as far as Barbadian film is concerned.
We don't have any mechanisms in place. I remember that film, Kirk Dawson. That was Sean Bullen that made that film. I remember him asking me, do you have any equipment I could borrow or whatever? He did it out of pocket. You don't want to come back and do that after the first one and you never had anyone to help you distribute and anything else. However, I can say that Marcia Weeks worked it as well. Marcia Weeks, I never met her at the time, and she asked me, got a message, can I borrow a microphone or whatever? She shot the movie in 2-3 days. It was the first... I can't remember the name of the story, but then she did about 2 other sequels after it.
Hush.
Hush. She did Hush, and then she moved on to other films. And look where she is now. She's doing movies between Jamaica, Africa, Barbados, and that's where we need to go. We need to build someone from stage one on our platform, CBC, whatever else. I remember when she went into CBC the first time and got a deal to show it on CBC. CBC actually paid her the first time for it. After that, she found creative ways of getting money where it went on CBC, and CBC then gave her promotion, so she got the cinema filled with people because they were seeing the commercial in their face all the time. So you have to find creative ways. CBC might not have the money, but CBC I think we missed the spot years ago in opening up the market to more TV stations, because it would allow the creative industries to grow, because we'd be developing more product. But we have to try and adapt and see where we can go now to move this industry forward.
Claire, you wanted to add something there
Yeah.
a minute ago.
And actually, Riv, because you talk about creative ways, remember, Riv and I actually worked together in 2005 when we made CBC TV's first reality game show, Rumbout, Wednesday nights on CBC TV, right? And we had to, and we had the same challenges in terms of financing it then, and we had to think, how are we gonna be able to make it happen? And we had to go to Singular Wireless at that time, and it wasn't easy, as Viv alluded to. It's hard trying to piece together the financing, but using those creative ways, you can make stuff like that happen. And you can see too, like there is audience there, and once people see it, and sometimes you have to see it in order to really be it. And we were that in terms of Rambo and the success then. But it is hard to keep doing it because there's not really an infrastructure for it, as Riv said.
So the BVA will have to be active in creating that infrastructure and helping to create that framework.
Yeah.
Mark, you wanted to add something as well, but please hold that thought. We have to take this quick commercial break. Great discussion that we're having here on the business of film. We'll be back in a few. We're trying to get over some of the challenges seen in the local film industry, and we're getting some answers from our guest, Rivelino Simmons, the president of the Barbados Film and Video Association, Mark Walton, the associate professor of media management at the New School, Claire Ince is a writer and producer, and Kirk Dawson is the managing director of 13 Degrees North Productions, Inc. Mark, you were about to say something. We have a caller on the line. Just hold the line. We'll come to you shortly. Mark, you wanted to make a point.
Yeah, I did. And I know you like numbers, Shane, so I wanted to give you some numbers, put this in perspective. So the entire global spending on film and TV product is $220 billion, that's US, of which US and Canada are taking up about 2/3 of that. This is the amount of money that's out there in the market to be spent. And half of that money actually goes to independent film and TV producers around the world. But the reality is that the Caribbean is not getting anywhere near its share based on its audience size. And this is where the distribution part of the conversation needs to come in. I'm teaching now, but I was a film distributor and worked at 2 TV networks who were dealing with Africa and the Caribbean. And I go to a market that is where most of the TV programs and films are bought and sold, and there's absolutely an absence of people from the Caribbean there. Africa is starting to be there. Nigeria was there. I was there a couple of weeks ago in Cannes at a festival, at a market. but the Caribbean is not there. And if we're not there on a stage where people are buying and selling of the content, the money will not circle back to us. So I'm just making the point that distribution has to be a really key part of this discussion and getting the content that's created in the country out into the world to be circulated.
Indeed, and I use the example too, following on from your point, Mark. We've been seeing a lot of Korean films come to the fore on Netflix. They've been telling their story, some interesting stories. They have created big buzz. We know all about some of the bigger ones. I wouldn't call them by name. But Korea has been one of those countries that has been able to emerge, tell their stories, and make big money, take a big part of that $220 billion that you're talking about through Netflix. So we need to find out how Barbados, how Grenada, how Trinidad and Tobago can, and the countries of the region can do more to take a piece of this pie. Let's go to the phone lines very quickly to get this question in or comment. Good night, caller. Welcome to the People's Business. What's your question or comment?
Yeah, I
Good
have
evening.
a few points. Yeah, I have a few points I would like to make. The first point, though, is the role of government in film. I've always said that the government could give CBC a budget of $10 million for at least 1 year or 2 years to develop a film industry, much like how Fox News, NBC, those have studios that develop films. If you have a CBC with a film industry, it means that they can develop and get money coming into the country, revenue coming into the country. If you can produce 10 films in the first year, at least one of those films should be able to break and get over $100, $200 million coming into the budget. I'm sure there's a lot more budget, a lot more money for CBC than what the government is paying them right now. And CBC doesn't have to think in terms of laying off staff. Also, by creating a film industry, you can employ people. Film affects a number of other industries, not only the technical industries. It affects the food and beverage industry, the cosmetic industry, the designers industry. I think we're just playing around. We're just playing around with this. And in the case of Atlanta, for example, when they allowed Tyler Perry to invest in Atlanta, they have offered so many concessions that people come there now to Atlanta, and people prefer to go to Atlanta rather than going to Hollywood. That's my first point. Secondly, I've been around TV, radio, film for over 40 years. Probably this is my first venture getting into film right now. What I've discovered now is that we have a lack of, first of all, we have a lack of actors. Most of the actors right now are being trained by CC and university. Pretty decent skills, but when you're looking for mature people now, you don't have those mature people to perform the roles that you want in the film. So we still have a long way to go in that regard. So in terms of actors, we are still green in that area. Thirdly, we don't have any directors. So we don't have any directors, or should I say we don't have many directors. We may have one or two good directors. We're lacking in that area. So we need to address these areas that are lacking. Fourthly, when you approach hotels and guest houses and so on about using their property for film, they look at you funny. They don't understand that they can benefit from it. In Nigeria, for example, they use a lot of hotels and guest houses and make deals with them. In Barbados, our people do not understand the benefits of that. And my last point is cost. In Nigeria, for example, when the actors charge a lot of money, they get blacklisted because they say, look, we're now starting this thing, we're developing an industry. Who do you think you are that you come and charging people a lot of this money? And I find that in Barbados, the cost in Barbados of producing a film are beyond the level of an embryonic industry, and that is going to kill our industry if we don't, if our production people don't reduce their costs and allow the industry to flourish. Those are my points for the evening, and the panel can respond to them, sir.
Thank you, caller, for your comments and your question as well. Rivelino, where do you want to start? We could start at the back end there with the charges and how much money? I mean, we already established that it's an expensive business. The industry, the business of film, is expensive, and this is where I guess some of the concessions come in. Yes, at the government level, but when you're charging, when you're going through some of these charges, as he said, with an industry that is still in the embryonic stages, you're really spinning top in mud.
But there's many ways he can approach it. He could approach it in a different way. He could say to his actors, well, it's free market. Well, they could charge what they want. However, you can look at it this way. Oh, I'm doing a project. I'll give you a percentage. I remember when we did Rumbout first, the cameraman that came and shot our pilot for us, I told him, if you shoot this pilot for us at no cost, you are the cameraman on the series and you have first choice at the job. We had to do things like that. You know, it's about cutting deals, and film is about the relationships and that family, and you're building a family. If I wanted to do a soap once recently, and I was going to get a load of people that were interested, wanted to do this, and put their sweat equity into it at first. I can't afford to pay them at the beginning. I just shot a pilot, my destination wedding. We went to Mexico to shoot, and my whole crew, a lot of them would defer costs. A few I paid, and we went off and did a pilot, and now we're talking with Netflix agents on it. You have to be able to cut deals and work things as a producer and talk to people. It's either they're looking for something that will grow or they want a one-time payday.
Okay.
Right. I saw you there. You wanted to add to that, Kurt?
Yes. So the caller mentioned a number of points. So let me go first with what Rick was saying. Depending on his structure, he can literally even say to the crew, okay, I am not able to pay you your rate, but I'm willing to give everybody the same flat rate across the board once he works out what his budget is. So if he's able to pay everybody $300 a day, then you pay everybody $300 a day. There are people there that will agree to that. There are people there that won't agree to that. But you have to find the right fit for you to build out your project. And as Rick said, it is all relationship based. Now, touching back on his $10 million incentive, there's already a proposal that we are working on to government to create a film incentive, a film incentive fund. Where it will be revolving. So every year, X amount will go in. We are then able to look at developing the films, and then out of that, either through whatever means, it will get topped up. Now, film in itself is all about also the full creative spectrum. So it isn't only about film; it encompasses music as well, right? And if we look at the cultural side of Barbados, or the cultural side of the industry, as the caller rightly said, yes, it spans all spectrums of Barbados. So food and beverage, the hotels, the arts and music, transport, whatever. Now, from his point of talking to hotels, my wife wrote 2 articles thus far on film tourism. Now, we have the tourist season. Now, in her article, she wants us to look, when they say us, I mean the country Barbados, to look at filming or using up the hotels as locations outside of the season, which then creates a level of tourism product. So whereas now you're period in the down period of Barbados, right, when it's not the winter season and it's the down period, then we look at creating Barbados as that destination for film. So then now the hoteliers will benefit from that in terms of their hotel gets the exposure. And then we as producers will then have the locations or the spaces at a reasonable rate. And also, if more people are coming in, then that also means employment for the hotels too, as well, to keep their staff on longer. Because, for example, like in Netflix, for example, bringing in 100 crew, right? So my wife and I, we do facilitation across the Caribbean. So we did Royal Caribbean cruise shoot in Dominica. We had 100 strong crew. Now, when we go into a hotel and say we want 100 rooms, that is a totally different conversation from the regular tourists coming and saying, okay, I want room for a family for a week, right? And then that in itself then drives the foreign exchange into the prospective country and builds the industry like that. As it relates to actors, yes, he's correct. A lot of actors in Barbados are trained for stage because at the end of the day, NIFCA is our highest platform. So everybody goes through and trains to be on the NIFCA stage. But acting for stage and acting for screen are two totally different um, dynamics, and you have to understand that as well. The emotion that you will put forward on stage is not what we are going to want for the camera. Any little movement that you do with your body, the camera is going to pick up. Any emotion that you portray, it is going to pick up. We don't need the overacting. So the caller is right. Yes, there are not a lot of actors being trained for stage, but once again, that is a next business that can be developed within the sector. And I will stop there.
Yes. I think we have to look at a number of things. The good thing is we've been involved in a group, myself, Mark, and Kirk, in working with the Ministry of Culture on looking at how to develop the industry further. So it's not like government isn't doing anything. We have been working for the past few months, Kirk. How many months? And we looking at the whole industry from facilitation to local production and everything else. So it's about moving it forward and looking at all the aspects and not just about bringing in international crews. And I think we can move from strength to strength if we just focus and little steps, little wins, our local platform, CBC, and whatever else. We just have to take advantage of it and do it right.
Yeah.
And we don't have to look at the Hollywood model. We can look at our own model to move this forward because
But
things are so different
can
these
I,
days.
Yes.
just really quickly, I just want to say that it's a global industry. To your point, Ray, about talk to anyone, because even for developing movies like Bazadi, you never know which international production company might be interested in terms of finance, getting involved in terms of a Caribbean project. People are always looking for new things. Um, even outside, people, there's more interest in terms of Caribbean and horror stories. So just remembering that it's a global industry and that we need to take up space in that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, let me add to that too. Also looking
Right.
at the future.
Well, hold a quick second. We'll take a final break and then we'll come back and get some final comments on developing this film industry that we want to build out here in Barbados. Well, we had a great conversation tonight. It continues, but for about 5 more minutes. That's why we want to give all of our guests tonight about 45 seconds each to make some final comments about where we need to go with this local film industry. Mark, I'll start with you on the training side of things. We have the BCC and the UWI here. Are they doing enough in that element of film as far as you know?
Yeah, and to be honest, I don't have a deep understanding of what is going there. My contribution has really been as an outsider living here in New York, seeing the market from a global perspective. So let me just throw in a sense there. When we're looking at the global aspects of it, co-production and pre-sales, going to markets that you know would be able to accept the content and getting a pre-sale. I want to remind people, just here in the US, 1 in 10 Black Americans is of Caribbean descent or has a family tie to the Caribbean. There are markets that are just waiting for the content, and we just need to kind of galvanize, structure, market, and take advantage of the markets that exist outside of the Caribbean, as well as in Africa, which is another market of interest.
Claire, a final comment from you?
I think that I want to really focus on writers out there, because it does start with story, and it is incredibly hard when there is no infrastructure for you to develop your content. I just want to give a word of encouragement to just keep at it, learn as much as you can, watch as much as you can, talk to people, collaborate with people. Sometimes we can be really competitive and feel like if something's for me, that if I that the pie is limited. I just want to encourage people to collaborate and share and continue to learn your craft.
What about you, Kirk? I mean, you and Rivelino have been working on this plan, and I mean, with all good intentions, but you've faced so many challenges. What do you want to see Kirk going forward?
Right, Shane. So Riv and I and our working group, because is a lot more Riv, Mark, and there are a lot of other players, especially, and also too from the University of West Indies, that we are all sitting and putting our heads together to develop the structure for the film and television sector going forward. Now, for me, I want to see more young people get opportunities. I want to see more young people not be deterred from creating their work. Because once you're bitten by the bug, then it keeps going. So like you have young people like Trinity Rose, that's only 14 years old, has a script, but it is young people like that need the help and the encouragement to keep going forward. Yes, we don't have all the in place presently, but once, as I keep saying, once you have a good story and have the listening ear or the encouragement of creatives around you, and like Claire said, anybody at any point in time could be willing to pick up your story. And remember that you never ever know. For us, 13 Degrees North, we never thought that we would have made it thus far within the creative sector, but it is never to give up. And I would make, for me, my mantra now is to use my knowledge and experience and wealth to help and inspire and develop future generations of young creatives across the Caribbean.
Yeah.
And
Indeed, I agree. I agree. It's all about creating that space. Riv, some final words from you?
Very fast. Let's not just think film and movies. This is about broadcast as well. There are tons of opportunities in broadcast, doing TV shows and whatever else. Let's not think this is just film and movies. Broadcast has a lot of opportunities. I have a syndicated show out in Nigeria every day that I do. I have a weekly show in the Caribbean. There are opportunities, endless opportunities. We need to chase them all.
And that's a good point to wrap up this edition of The People's Business as we speak about the business of film, where we need to go. We need another hour for this, guys. It's been good having you on. At least we have some of the answers. And hopefully, as a team, we can create a new dream for the film industry here in Barbados. I really want to thank you, Riv. Thank you, Mark, Claire, and Kurt for spending some time with me tonight. And of course, thank you, viewers, for watching another edition of The People's Business. Thanks for your questions and your comments. We will see you next Sunday at this same time for another edition of The People's Business.